Today on our 2013 Chevy Captiva, we'll be installing the Blue Ox base plate kit with removable arms, part number BX3332. Now to install the removable tabs, turn it so the groove lines up and pushes back on the spring lock, then rotate it so it lines up with the groove in the base plate and locks into place. Then to remove it, we'll pull back on the pin ring, rotate it up, and remove the arm. To begin our install, we'll first go ahead and open the hood. We'll need to remove the upper fascia cover that connects the front fascia to the core support. There are multiple fasteners to be removed. These fasteners are a two-piece fastener and screw out on the center, and then we can pop them out of the position. Note, over time these fasteners can wear out in the center, so it may be necessary to use a flat blade screwdriver to assist in bringing the center portion of the fastener out. Then we can go ahead and remove it completely and set it aside for reinstallation later. Next, we'll move to the wheel well. We'll need to remove two fasteners on each side. To gain easier access to these fasteners, we'll go ahead and turn the wheel in on the side we're working on to create some room. Now with both fasteners removed on the driver's side, I'll move over to the passenger side and repeat the same process. Next, we're going to move underneath the vehicle. There are multiple fasteners that will need to be removed to release the lower fascia. Now that we're under the vehicle, starting at the center near the air dam, directly under the license plate, we'll remove the bolt that secures the front of the fascia. Next, working further underneath the vehicle, we'll remove the two push-pin fasteners, one on each side, that secure the lower fascia to the frame. Next, starting from the lower fascia where it meets the wheel well, we'll need to remove two small screw fasteners. We'll repeat the same process on the other side. Now with all the lower fasteners removed, we'll move back to the top of the fascia. Just behind the front grille, above the license plate, there's a screw push-pin fastener. Again, we'll screw the center out and then remove the fastener. Now, starting at the corners where the front fascia meets the front fender, we'll go ahead and start popping them free, releasing from the fasteners underneath. Once we have the corners free, we'll pull it back enough that we can gain access and release any electrical connections. To remove this connector, we'll pull back on the gray locking tab, then press on the connector lock and remove it. Next, we'll move over to the driver's side. We'll need to remove the windshield washer bottom. Starting with the connector that faces the front of the vehicle, we'll pull down on the connector lock and out on the connector to release it from the socket. Next, we'll need to remove the two wiring connectors that go to the solenoids. The connector lock is on the inside, so we'll pull back on the connector lock and release it. The connector lock is at the top of the connector, underneath the tape. Once we have those released, we'll then remove the hoses. Just behind the fender, there's a union or coupling for both hoses. We need to remove one side or the other from the coupling. Once we do that, we'll go ahead and pull the wiring out of the way. On the inside of the washer tank, there's an electrical connector that'll need to be removed. Using a flat-bladed screwdriver or an interior trim panel tool, we can simply get underneath the connector and pry it out of its position. Between the washer tank and the inner fender well, we'll need to remove the two fasteners that secure it. Now with those two fasteners removed, we'll remove the third one at the bottom of the tank. To remove it, we'll separate the tank from the fill tube. Now we'll move over to the passenger side where we can remove the air baffle. The air baffle is secured with two fasteners. Once we have the fasteners out, we can go ahead and remove the air baffle. Quick tech tip, be careful not to lose the grommet that will stick in the frame. Next, here on the passenger side, we'll need to remove the push pin fastener located just below the inner edge of the headlight assembly. We'll screw the center of the fastener out and then remove it from the upper edge of the bumper. Next, we're going to start removing some of the fasteners on the front bumper. Starting where the headlight assembly attaches to the front bumper, we'll remove the bolt that secures it. We'll do this on both sides. Then we're going to remove the 4 bolts on each side that secure the bumper to the frame. Next, at the center of the front bumper is the temperature sensor. We'll go ahead and remove the temperature sensor by simply pushing in on the tabs to release it. Then we'll move up and remove the push pin attachment points to secure the wiring to the bumper. Next, we'll remove the connector here attached to the front bumper. This connector was attached to the fascia. Now we'll remove the 3 fasteners Now we can go ahead and remove the front bumper, working the cooler line out as we go. We'll set our bumper aside for installation later. Quick tech tip, we'll now take an opportunity to take the fastener that we removed earlier that was holding the cooler line and reinstall it back into the center support to support the cooler lines. Now we'll move to the frame rail on the passenger side. We'll need to remove the 2 push pin fasteners into the top of the frame extension. One is a screw out center push pin fastener, and the other is just a push pin fastener. Now with no more connections here to the top of the frame extension, we can remove the 4 bolts, 2 on top and 2 on bottom, that hold it in place. Once we remove the fasteners, we'll then go ahead and work the extension out. Now we'll move over to the driver's side and basically repeat the same process. We'll first remove the electrical connection, that's a push pin fastener. Getting our wiring back and out of the way. We can then remove the 4 fasteners that secure the frame extension. Next, we'll need to modify the frame flange. Starting at the top of the frame, we'll cut the frame flange so that it's even or flush with the frame. As we get towards the bottom, we'll then angle out away from the attachment point. Now we'll go ahead and connect our lines. And then use a reciprocating saw or angle grinder to cut out this section. Now with our cutout made on each side, we're going to reinstall the frame extension with 2 fasteners to hold it in position. We'll just install our fasteners finger tight, because we only needed enough to hold the extension in position so we can use the cutout as a template to mark out the area on the frame extension that'll need to be removed. Note, here on the passenger side, we will not be removing the weld nut at the bottom. So after we trace it out, we'll come straight across and leave the weld nut remaining. On the driver's side, in the same position, we'll leave the threaded stud for the windshield washer tank reservoir attachment point. Now to make it easier to make our cuts, we'll go ahead and remove the extension, cut it out, and only reinstall on the passenger side at this time. Now with our cutout made here for the passenger side, we'll go ahead and reinstall it and tighten it down. Now that we have it reinstalled and tightened down, we'll need to cut out a large hole here in the front of the frame extension to allow for our hardware. We're going to use our hole saw bit and cut out a 1 1/4 inch hole in the center of the frame extension. To drill out the large hole, we're first going to make a pilot hole using a step bit process, starting with a smaller pilot bit and working our way up to the size of our hole saw pilot bit. Now with our passenger side done, we'll move over to the driver's side and repeat the same process, only we will not reinstall the frame extension at this point. Next, we're going to remove the 2 fasteners that hold the center support and hood latch. We're just going to remove the fasteners and set it up and out of the way. Now with both of the frame extensions cut out and the passenger side installed, we'll need to trim the air dam just above the frame extension. Measure back 1.5 inches. And extend the cutout line back to our 1.5 inch mark. Now to make this cutout, you could use a utility knife or a rotary tool. Note, if you do use a utility knife, getting through the rib here can be difficult. This will now allow for our base plate crossbar to sit in position. Now we're ready to install the base plate. The base plate will fit up and over the extension on the passenger side. As we put our base plate in position, we'll also reinstall the driver's side frame extension. To do this, it's a good idea to get an extra set of hands to help you hold the base plate while you reinstall the frame extension on the driver's side. Now with the base plate resting on top of the frame extensions, we'll go ahead and tighten down the driver's side frame extension. Now, to line up our base plate, we'll use the pre-existing hole in the frame extension and the ridge or seam here of the extension with the bottom of the base plate. Once we have it in place, we'll use a clamp to secure it and hold it in position. The front edge of the base plate should be about 1/4 inch off the top of the frame extension flange. Now with the base plate lined up and the clamp holding in position, we need to drill out our attachment points. Here on the passenger side, there'll be 1 closer to the front of the vehicle and 3 here that will go directly into the frame. As per the instructions, we'll use a 13/32 final size bit. We're going to use a step bit process, starting with a smaller pilot bit and working our way up to the final size. Now with the hole drilled out, we'll go ahead and install the fastener and tighten it down to help hold the base plate in position. Note, each one of the fasteners that we install will get red Loctite added to the threads. We'll be using the bolt split lock washer going into the frame, then secured with our handle nut. Now that it's installed, just go ahead and snug it up. Now I'll go ahead and repeat the same process for my other attachment points. Now, before we can tighten down and drill out the attachment points here on the driver's side, we need to match the height and spacing of the base plate to the frame flange. Using some scrap material, we'll set it in position and then clamp it down and hold it in place. Once we have our spacing correct, we'll go ahead and tighten down our clamp to help hold the base plate in position while we draw out the attachment points. Now, for the forward attachment point here on the driver's side, before we install our fasteners, we'll need to compensate for the rib in the frame extension. To do that, we're going to use a 3/8 flat washer and a 5/16 flat washer and sandwich it between the hitch and the base plate. Now with all our fasteners installed, we'll go ahead and tighten them down and then torque to specifications. Now with our fasteners tightened and torque specifications, we'll go ahead and use a pair of side cutters or tin snips to cut off the excess from the handle nut. Any remaining handle we can push into the frame as we no longer need to access it. Ready? Next we're going to install the base plate safety cables and quick links. Our safety cable is going to go down and around the frame and reattach to itself using the quick link, and secure here to the pre-designated point in a base plate using the second quick link. Now to help keep the cable and quick link up and out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and secure it with a zip tie. These will only be used in emergency situations. Now with our cables on and secured, we can go ahead and cut off the excess from the zip tie, clean up our install look. We're now ready to start reinstalling the front end of our vehicle, starting with the hood latch bracket assembly. Because our vehicle is equipped with the cooler lines, they'll need to be slightly relocated as we reinstall our front bumper. With my cooler now routed in position, we'll go ahead and tighten down our bumper and then secure the cooler. To make the cooler fit in with the base plate, we're going to need to go ahead and take off the fastener that was out here on the end for the driver's side. Using a cutoff wheel, we can go ahead and just remove the bracket. When possible, we'll use the pre-drilled hole in the bumper to re-secure the cooler. However, with this design cooler, it won't allow us to get it all the way down to use the pre-drilled hole, so we'll go ahead and drill out our own hole, then use a bolt, flat washer, and flange nut to re-secure it. Once we have the cooler line in position, we'll go ahead and use a small pilot bit to drill out our hole. And we'll make it large enough for our bolt. Once we have the hardware installed, we'll go ahead and tighten it down. We're now ready to reinstall the windshield washer tank and wiring. Now we'll go ahead and install the new base plate wiring bracket. We'll use the self-threading screws provided with the install kit. We're going to keep about 3/16 of an inch space between the center support and the bracket. Make sure you hold it up tight to the bottom so we can get as much metal to secure the bracket as possible. Now we're ready to reinstall the front fascia. We'll set the fascia into position and mark the areas that will need to be cut out for the base plate. Using our rotary tool, we'll go ahead and cut out the 2 sections we marked. With our cutouts made, we'll go ahead and install the front fascia. As we reinstall the front fascia, we'll make sure we reconnect the electrical connector and the locking tab to secure it. And that'll complete the install and setup of the Blue Ox base plate kit with removable arms, part number BX3332 on our 2013 Chevrolet Captiva Sport.